So our guest speaker this evening is Lisa Buck, and she has been involved in the foster adoption world for almost 20 years as a foster and adoptive parent, as well as serving in the first Foster Care Ombudsman in the state of Oklahoma. Lisa will share both her personal journey as well as some lessons learned in the Ombudsman in caring for Oklahoma's most vulnerable children and families. Welcome this evening, and Lisa, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. Um, NAMI is has a special place in our hearts as a family. Both my husband and I have worked for NAMI in the past, and we have absolutely loved this organization and our time with it through the years. And so it's just a privilege to be here with you guys this evening. So Paula asked me just to kind of share a little bit about our journey as foster parents. And so I'll start by saying we didn't want to do this. Or let me start off by more clearly stating I did not want to do this. This was not something that was really weighing on my heart. It was not something that I really envisioned my whole life or anything like this. But years ago, we were in a Bible study group, and one of the families that was in the group with us came in and announced in one of the Bible studies one time that they felt that God had really called them into the work of foster care. And in my loving, most church lady stance, I, mouth gaping open, turned around and looked at them and said, "Have you lost your ever loving mind? Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that you would want to do this. This is just crazy." And they, justified their position and, really, tried to show us their passion for it. And I didn't buy any of it. And I was like, you know what? I will pray for you and I will bring you dinner, but that's it, man. I mean, that's it. You're just asking for a world of heartache. Um, and so they got their first placement, and it was a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so because I am true to my word, if anything else, I prepared dinner to take over there. And so I walked in with dinner, and it's probably been about 20 years ago now that Oklahoma did a survey, and 75% of Oklahomans that participated in this survey came back and said that they thought foster children were juvenile delinquents. 75%. Now, I'm going to tell you, I felt pretty at this point in my life, I felt pretty worldly and connected to things. I mean, I read the newspapers and I watched Oprah, and so I felt like I was, in touch with the world and what was going on. Um and I knew that foster children were not juvenile delinquents. I knew that in my head. But if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, when I pulled up that night to take dinner to my friends, I think probably in the back of my mind, I halfway expected that 3-year-old to be smoking a cigarette on the front porch. I mean, I just did not, I was so clueless as to what I was fixing to walk into in that home. Um, and when I set foot in that door, my world changed forever. I walked in and I had a big tray of food, and immediately these two babies came and ran and grabbed my legs, and I couldn't even see them below the tray of food. And I said, "Oh, hello, Miss Lisa. So happy to see you. Let me put down this food and I'll give you some lovin's." And I lowered the pan of food, and they're looking up at me were these two babies that were the spitting image of my children. spitting image. And suddenly I thought, there, but by the grace of God, walk I. And then in that moment, I also realized how very little I knew. So um, we came alongside that family. They were a youth minister and his wife at a church, and they were gone a lot, with youth trips and stuff. And so we became their respite providers, and these kids were with us probably 2-3 nights a week, and they just became part of our family. Now, I will tell you that case ended in the worst possible way. It was an absolutely traumatic, horrendous ending to a case that could possibly happen. And then when that happened, my husband and I were already in the process of becoming foster parents ourselves because we had been so moved by these children, and our eyes had been open to the circumstances of the world that Oprah never talked about, and what was going on in our state of Oklahoma. And so we just had decided by this point to become foster parents ourselves. But when this case ended so horribly, it really put us at a crossroads. And at about the same time is when the rumblings of the latest lawsuit against DHS was happening. And we were put at a crossroads because my husband and I are both real advocates and at heart and by nature. And so we could either advocate to and join the forces of the lawsuit and advocate to tear DHS down brick by brick, or we could continue on as foster parents to try to change the system from the inside. And I will tell you that had we selected joining the lawsuit and working to tear DHS down, it would have been a much easier choice. But we continued on and became foster parents because we wanted to change the system differently. We wanted things to be different. So to that end, we became the very first family in the state of Oklahoma to work with a contracted agency in a pilot project. This was when contracted agencies were not a thing and they were going to try it out. And so we were the first family in the state to do that. And then years later, I became the first appointed foster care ombudsman for the state. And my job in that role was to solve issues and grievances that foster parents had with DHS in order to make their process easier and to give them a voice in the system. So I came a long way from that first conversation with my friends of saying, you have lost your ever loving mind going down this path, to where we came through the years and where we've advocated through the years. So that's just kind of an overview of the history. And I will tell you that if you're on this call and you have not, I'll cover a lot of different things to do, but I really want to give this shout out early that I was probably 8 years in as a foster parent before I took the NAMI basics class. And I will tell you that was a game changer. If you have not taken the NAMI basics class, please take that class. It doesn't matter if you're a foster parent, adoptive parent, any kind of parent. That is a wealth of knowledge and resources that I had no idea existed. And it was such a huge benefit. So really kudos. That's a strong, strong program. So I'd highly recommend that as you're going forward with any of your parenting journeys. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the kiddos that we served in foster care, and I wanted to try to address some of the top questions and issues that I ran into pertaining to mental health, particularly as the foster care ombudsman. And then I'm happy to open it up and answer any questions that you have. Currently, I am the vice president of marketing and development at North Care. North Care is a community mental health clinic in Oklahoma City, but we also hold the contract for comprehensive home-based services through DHS and intensive safety services with DHS. And with those DHS programs, we cover 47 counties in the state. So I can answer any questions as we go forward too. So anyway, what I wanted to spend a little bit of time with is when we started our foster journey, we have 4 daughters of our own. And so when we started taking foster children, because of that first case, as heartbreaking as it was, it taught me so much on how to advocate appropriately for the kids that were in my care. I learned a tremendous amount with that case. And so I know that those kids were placed in our lives for a reason. And so what I did was when I started taking placements, because we had 4 girls of our own, and because of what all I had learned in the first case and where our family was, and when we would get called to take a placement, I had a list of about 12 questions that I would ask. And I will tell you, and I tell foster parents this all the time, I said no more than I said yes. Because, my first and foremost priority was my four children that were in the house for their safety and protection. And so there were certain cases and kids that I just couldn't do. And then I learned also with that first case, what I could do and what I could accept as a foster parent. And so, which is kind of strange, but what I learned and what I could do better was with the shocking and heinous cases. So we ended up taking some of the most critical kids in the state. It's a backwards way of thinking, but it's what I could do and how I felt most beneficial. So we started down our journey, and we ended up so we had 4 girls, and we ended up with going through the process, and through the years we had like 7 more girls. And so we were like in the girl zone, man. We had the girl thing figured out, and we were rocking the girl thing. My poor husband would get up in the morning, take a testosterone shot, and move on with his day because he needed something to balance us out over here. But this had been going on for several years. I'd gotten my 12 questions really honed in on who we were going to take and who we weren't going to take. I knew the red flags to look for in a case. And I knew the questions to ask by this point. And compared to where I was when we first started, I was very educated. I got up to speed quickly on these cases, the hidden words to look for, the hidden descriptions to look for in kiddos. I mean, I had a system pretty well down. And so we had just transitioned some girls out of our house and decided that we needed a little break as a family. And so we were going to take a few months off and regroup, and then catch our breaths and start again. And so that lasted about 3 weeks. And they called and they said, listen, we know that you're on a break. And we really want to respect that. But we have these 2 little boys that are at the shelter. Would you just come volunteer with them? Just come volunteer and hang out and play with them. And I said, I don't really do boys. I got this girl thing, and I don't do. So I'll come volunteer and love on them and play with them and everything, but don't hoodwink me into these boys because, I'm a girl mom. We got the girl thing down. And they said, okay, no problem. So I went for my first time to volunteer with these two little boys, and they were 1 and 3. And yeah, just turn 1 and just turn 3. And I played all one afternoon with them. And the one that was just turning 3 had blonde hair and these huge blue eyes. And he was a stinker. I mean, I knew that much, right? Just from playing with him in the afternoon. But when I got ready to leave, he crawled up in my lap and he snuggled me big and he says, I want to go home with you. And I don't know how you tell a 3-year-old, I don't do boys. I just do girls. I have a girl thing going. And so I said, well, you can't go home with me today, but I'll be back. I'm going to come back and play. And so I went the next day and I played for a few more days with them. And every day, this little one would look up at me with those big blue eyes and say, I want to go home with you. And so I, mentioned this to our caseworker, and she said, you ought to take him home. Boys are great. Boys are fun. You ought to try boys. They're great. Boys are awesome. And I said, I don't know. I kind of got the girl thing going. I don't know anything about boys. I don't have boy toys. I don't have anything. I just don't know. And she said, and I said, but I'll review the case. So I reviewed the case. And you know how I said that I had become educated about how to read a case and the red flags that were in the case. There were all kinds of red flags in this case. Now, when I say red flags, they were red flags to me personally. They were red flags that these are not the type of cases that I take. These are not the type of kiddos that I take. This is not the type of case that I usually get involved with. And there were a ton of red flags. And yet when I looked at those blue eyes, my heart melted. And so I made the decision, and my husband made the decision to choose the blue eyes over the red flags. And that was probably one of the most critical, life-altering decisions that we've ever made. We took these babies in, and although I could read the case file and I could see the red flags, I had no idea what journey we were fixing to go on. None. Those blue eyes broke my heart and tested my will, really for the last 12 years. The baby is really pretty good. He's a great kiddo. The one that was 3 is a challenge today, and he's 15. That case went on for 3.5 years. And the only reason that we hung on as long as we did, because we had every reason in the world to give up on these kiddos. And there's not anybody that would have faulted us if you saw what all we went through with them. But the only reason we hung on is because Steve and I never got to the point of quit on the same day. I think if we'd both gotten to the point of quit on the same day, it would have been done. We try to be really respectful of where the other one is on this journey and where they are. And really, we only got to the point of absolute quit twice. Steve did once, and he had the kids buckled in the car. He was done, and he had them buckled in the car, and he was taking them back to the shelter. He was just finished. And I said, we can't take them back tonight because it's the weekend. But if this is what we want to do, we'll take them back on Monday. And we told our children that they just needed more care than what we knew how to do, and we were not equipped to care for these boys. And our second daughter launched into this impassioned, she was about 12 at the time, launched into this impassioned sermon, is really what she did, and called us completely out on it and said, we could not give up on these kids. And how dare we even think about it? And that if we gave up on them, it was just going to be a series of people giving up on them. And just because things were tough, we were not going to give up on them. That as a family, we did not do that. And I mean, she launched into things we didn't even know she had in her. And so we kind of sat there as the big people in the room and said, okay, well, all right, I guess we'll hang on a little bit longer. And then I got to the point of quit one day, and it was before church, and I was at the time co-teaching a class on foster care and adoption at our church, and I reached my point. I would reach my breaking point, and told Steve, I said, I'm done. Cannot do this another day. I am done. And he said, okay, well, we'll move forward tomorrow. And so I go to this class because I got to co-teach this class, and I'm sitting in the back of the class, and literally I am making a list of everything that I have to pack for these boys, because it was too hard, and I was done, and I was making lists of what all I needed to do and who all I needed to call and what all I needed to pack. And we're watching a video in this class on adoption, and I'm only half listening to it because I have to listen to it to know when to turn it off and when to restart it. And so I'm only halfway listening to it, and the guy on the video says, when you enter into the world of foster and adoption, you need to expect spiritual warfare. And I heard warfare because that's where I was right then at that moment. And I keyed in on that. And he said, because really, when those children are in a dysfunctional situation or with their family, or if they're in an orphanage or in a shelter, that's exactly where Satan wants them. And so he can do whatever he wants. But when you intervene, you need to expect spiritual warfare, because you're intervening on behalf of these children. It's like, okay. So I came home, and Steve said, okay, so what do we do tomorrow? And I said, well, they're staying. And he said, they are? And I said, yeah, it's not him, it's Satan. And Steve looked at me and said, well, I'm kind of pretty sure they're one and the same right now. So I tell you that just because I just want to be really transparent that these children that we have, whether we biologically birth them or not, you're in a really hard situation with them. And so always be respectful of your spouse's position and your own position, as well as to how you can benefit and how you can help these kids. But it's okay to get to the point of quit and work through it one way or the other, because it's a difficult, frustrating situation. Now, I will tell you that when we started down this path with Isaiah, we had a lot of resources personally. We had a lot of connections and a lot of resources. Steve at the time was a deputy director for OKDMH, um, HSAS, the Department of Mental Health. And so he had connections. I had a lot of connections from my career. We can make calls and get some answers, but we can make calls and get some answers that a lot of people couldn't, and didn't know where to go and didn't know where to call and didn't know how to find help. Now, unfortunately, in our state, our resources are limited for families and children going through significant mental health issues. We've made some progress through the years, but we're limited. And so to be able to know what limited resources are there and how to access them is a difficult thing. And that's where places like NAMI and I think I saw the family, Oklahoma Family Connections. I'm sorry, I always mess up your name. But they
Network.
Network, thank you. They do great jobs in helping you locate these resources and stuff that you need, because if you've not ever been, we were connected and didn't know the resources. And so you've got to have help to know those resources. And again, if you haven't taken NAMI Basics, they supply you with a ton of resources to help with anything from IEPs to behavioral techniques and different things like that. That was a real blessing of a class for me. But even with our knowledge and our collection, thank you for putting that up in the chat. They do a great job. Even with our connections and stuff, we could not and did not know how to adequately help Isaiah. So let me repeat that again. My husband was the deputy director at the Department of Mental Health, and I had a child who was diagnosed with significant mental health issues and shaken baby syndrome, and we could not access services and help. We didn't know where to turn. It's a hard road. So find as many resources and connections as you can in order to help you and your family. So here's some of the things that we learned. So let me just tell you, Isaiah has been diagnosed with PTSD, ADHD, anxiety disorder, and shaken baby syndrome. We have sought lots and lots and lots of help in different formats. His pediatrician is Deb Shropshire over Fostering Hope Clinic at OU. Deb has been with us from the beginning when we first got placement of the boys. And when she testified at their termination trial, she testified in court that Isaiah was, but at that time she had seen about 18,000 kids through her clinic. And she testified in court that Isaiah was one of the 5 worst children that she had come in contact with, that he was almost feral when he first came to us. And he was. And so she stood beside us on our journey of trying to get through the case and trying to find help and trying to get the testing and try to figure out what was going on, because it took us years to get to the diagnosis and to what was going on and to what medications may work and what medications may not work and things like that. My wisdom for those of you who are going through similar things with your children or foster children or adoption children is, don't give up, and don't get to the point where you are accepting what your parent gut is telling you is not really acceptable. Because at the end of the day, if that kid has been with you from since birth or for any period of time, nobody really knows that kid better than you do. And so you can advocate for those kids, and don't be afraid that just because you're seeing one therapist or one psychiatrist right now, after a period of time, now we'll tell you that takes it, you got to give them a minute because it takes a while for treatments and things to start working. So this isn't just after a few weeks thing, but after a few months, if you're not beginning to see some progress in different areas, it's okay to say this isn't working for us. It's okay to tell your provider that and see if they have any other solutions. And it's okay to tell your provider that and move on to somebody else. But the key is to move on to someone else, right? Don't stop and don't give up pursuing the resources and the help that you and your children need. So here's a couple of things that I learned along the way. That's a big one. I changed providers multiple times with Isaiah, and not because there was anything wrong with them. I, would have that conversation with providers after several months and say, I don't feel like that this is working for us. Are we not doing something right? Or is there something that we're missing in this? And had many providers say, I just don't know what to do with him. I just don't know how to help you. And that's okay, right? That's frustrating as a parent, but it's okay because at least this didn't work. I need to move on to the next thing. And I read every book that there was to read. Karen Purvis and I slept together every night. I had her books with me and fell asleep reading her books continuously on trying to help. One of my favorite stories to tell, and Deb Shropshire tells this story as well, and a lot of her talks and everything that she does is, I had read one of Karen Purvis's books, and it talked about the importance to have a safe place for a child to release their emotions, and that it was okay to let them. Now you have to understand, Isaiah came to us at the age of 3, proficient in the F word. He could use it as a noun, verb, adjective, adverb. It didn't matter. The boy could use the word. He also had very limited fine motor skills, but he could flip the bird with no problem to anybody and everybody. That was one fine motor skill he was exceptional at. So, so it was just a constant issue with him trying to, when you have to take him into church and say, it's not if, but when we drop the F bomb here in Sunday school. So you just kind of have to figure that out and tell those other parents, what you need to tell them, because I got to have that 40-minute break for myself. And so, but so I had read this Karen Purvis book on letting a child, do the release and having a safe place and everything. So I thought I was brilliant. And so I created this tent, and it was filled with pillows and books and stuffies and everything. And so I made this huge deal out of it to Isaiah. And I was like, Isaiah, this is our happy tent. And when we feel mad and when we feel frustrated and angry and we want to yell, we can go into our tent, and we can yell into the pillows and hit the pillows and talk to our stuffies. And when we come out, we'll be happy. And this is our happy tent. And so, because I had read the books and because I was so on top of things, we practiced the happy tent. We practiced going in the happy tent, and we practiced hitting the pillows, and we practiced doing everything. I was so proud of myself. It's probably the most therapeutic thing I've ever come up with in my life. And so I had this beautiful little happy tent. And so when the first time that I could see him start to rage and everything, I was like, okay, Isaiah, it's time for the happy tent. Are we ready to use the happy tent? And he turns around and looks at me and says, F the happy tent. That's, I thought, well, that didn't work, did it? And so, actually, through the years, that's become one of Deb Shropshire's favorite stories. And she's has always said, I'm just going to have that stitched on the pillow one day. I'm just going to have that stitched on the pillow, F the happy tent. And so, a few years ago, I gave that to her for her birthday as a pillow stitched with that saying on it. Because even those things that you read about and you think these are the most perfect solutions and perfect answers, it may not work for your kiddo that you have. And so you keep trying and you keep pushing forward to find different answers, and to try different things, because you never know really, what might work and what might not. So we went through a gamut of therapies, therapists, um, psychiatrists. Now, I will tell you that if you are a parent with a child with mental health concerns, um, and I say it's okay to switch, it is okay to switch, but also be educated in your switch and know that there's only about 12 child psychiatrists in the entire state of Oklahoma. So you're limited on your ability to switch there. And so, and make sure that you understand the role of a psychiatrist versus a therapist. So your psychiatrist is just in charge of medication management. They may do a little talking and a little therapeutic, but their main role is medication management. Your therapist is in charge of your talk therapy, your play therapy, PCIT therapy, all the different therapeutic type styles. But your day-to-day behavioral management, therapeutic techniques, that's through your therapist. They're more easily accessible, although I will tell you, we have a huge shortage of those right now in Oklahoma as well. But so make sure that if you switch, and then again, it's okay to switch, but be mindful of the fact that you're limited on the number of psychiatrists, especially that are available to you in the state. So Isaiah is now 15. He is functioning very well in school. He is he's a funny little dude. I mean, he keeps us in stitches with the things that he says, because he is very his autism is very prevalent at times, and so um, he's very dry in things. He wants everything very set forth and very straight. But we finally got to the point where we got to a good psychiatrist that we really liked, that worked really well with us, and has stayed with us. We've had him for, I don't know, probably, I don't know, a good number of years. But anyway, we've been really pleased with that. We've got him to a really stable place. But we never quit, and we never gave up. So, I mentioned NAMI basics for a good class to take. DMH has wraparound services that are really great for families. And I'm just going to drop these names so that you can know to ask about them. I mean, I don't know if they're right for your family or not, but they're great to inquire about and to ask about. The As far as if you're a foster parent, they're and even post adoptions are working on getting more support post adoptions right now. I was talking to Deb just last week that she's expanding the therapeutic aspect in for post adoptions, so that you'll have more support and more help with post adoptions. And so there should be a unit there that can help with therapeutic options and stuff post adoptions. Um, Enhanced foster care, if you're a foster care provider, you can ask if that's an option for you. But there are a lot of different services that you can tap into. Um, North Care has a whole family and children's division that accepts sooner care, and they we help with the really complex issues, and we also have crisis response. And so if you are experiencing a crisis with your child, you can call and either our number directly, and we can send out a crisis response unit. 988 is a great resource as well. Right now in our state, we're really blessed to have that. You can call them and they'll send out somebody that's close to you to help with the crisis response. But there are there is more help now than there has been in our state in a long time. We still have a long way to go, right? Oklahoma always seems to be at the bottom of the totem pole and everything, and mental health is unfortunately one of those areas as well. But the key for you as families is to know who to go to ask, right? And you have a lot of people on this call right now that can answer those questions for you, that can provide resources, that can tell you if you need an inpatient facility for your child, what are your options there. There's only a couple of outpatient facilities, day treatment facilities for our children in the state, but they can guide you in at least showing you what is available to you as a parent. And the most important thing is for you to know that you're not alone, that these organizations on this call with you right now are here to help and support you. Sometimes you just need to vent to somebody, and they're great for that as well too. And if you keep pushing forward, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to get to the light. I wasn't sure that we'd be where we are today with Isaiah. I didn't really know if we could get to this point in this status of well-being that we are. Now we still have our challenges. I still really wonder if he'll ever be able to live on his own. I may send him to live with Paula. Um, but he is so much better. He's so much better than he ever has been. And he's functioning really well. And he's doing really well. And so right now, I'm using these same resources that help me find mental wellness for him and mental security for our family, to also say, okay, what's the next steps? What do we do when he turns 18? And where can he live? And what can we do? And what does that look like? Because these organizations are filled with people who have wisdom, who've been there and done that, and who have lived experiences, which is better than anything usually that you can find anywhere else, Googling or otherwise, because they've walked through it and walked through it in our state and know the paths to which to direct you. But it's difficult. And I'm glad you guys are reaching out, and I'm glad you guys are working to get educated and seeking resources. And I can tell you, as somebody who's walked the path, that there is help and there is hope. And things will get better, then they'll get worse. and then they'll get better again. I mean, that's the cycle of living with a loved one with mental illness. Um, but things will be better, and daily we are improving things in our state to make things better for you. What questions can I answer for you guys?
Wow, Lisa, no questions. I'm impressed with that. I will make a comment. It is miraculous to change in your children from the time that you took them into your home to where they are now. It's just amazing. And all of the resources and supports that you have provided to see that change. Questions other people might have or comments?
Just don't quit seeking. I had something just deep inside of me that was just driving me, that this wasn't just ADHD and this just wasn't PTSD. I mean, I knew that a lot of it was PTSD. And don't be afraid to be creative with different things too. You know, the one of the things, and Isaiah will still talk about it today. I don't, and this was a desperation thing. This certainly didn't come from a Karen Purvis thing at all. But we lived for years with an entity in our house in Isaiah's little mind called Monster Jerry. And Isaiah had been sexually abused at a young age, and the only identity he could attach to it was Monster Jerry. And we don't to this day know who Monster Jerry was or anything like that. But he was very much able to articulate and draw for us what Monster Jerry did to him. And so we lived with Monster Jerry for years. Years we lived with Monster Jerry. And it provoked night terrors and night threats. And I don't know what came over me one night. It was probably sleep deprivation, but I grabbed a can of room spray, that, smells. And I wrapped a piece of paper around it and wrote monster spray. And so every night we would spray monster spray in our house. And it was just, air freshener. But we would spray the monster spray, and dadgum if that wasn't the thing that worked. I mean, we had tried, all of these other things, and he still talks about that. Remember when you got the monster spray and sprayed all the monsters out of our house? Remember that, Mama? Remember that? I mean, who knows? So don't, sometimes when you get tired and you're in survival mode, you lose your creativity. Don't lose your creativity and thinking what different things that might work, because the happy tent sure didn't work for me, but the monster spray did. I saw a question come up, but I can't see the chat. Paula, did you see?
They were asking, can a grandma who is a caregiver but not a foster parent take the NAMI classes you spoke about? And yes, you absolutely can.
Yeah. Yeah. And know that, again, I was 8 years in. My husband was at the department. I was working for NAMI myself at the time when I took the NAMI basics class, and was blown away with how much I learned. I mean, I really cannot say enough about that. It's a tremendous resource. I don't know how often y'all do those, Paula.
Just occasionally. I mean, we're getting ready to offer one to family support providers, and then we'll be offering it again to be open to others as well in the near future. So, and I'm kind of one of the ones that teaches that, in fact. So
they can check on your website for it.
Check on the website or reach out to me, either one. And if I need a teaching partner, I'll reach out to you, Lisa.
Okay. Yeah, do that. And I will tell you that, and this is a whole nother thing and really the Oklahoma network is really more equipped for this. But when you have a child with behavioral or mental health issues and you're dealing with the school system, that's a whole nother barrel of monkeys to deal with, and know that there's help and support. I just got through talking to a foster parent who said that their child could not function in public schools. And I remember thinking that myself at one time. And we even went to a private school for a while and came back to public schools. But I'm going to tell you that there are places there you can get help and advocacy support to build a strong IEP for children who are experiencing behavioral and mental health. And do not let a school tell you that they are not equipped to deal with the child. Do not. Do not. By state law, they have to deal with your child. And um, and so the Disability Law Center, the Family Advocacy Network, there's a lot of or several groups that really help with that. But that is not that's not an option. And but I just fielded that question from a foster parent right before this call.
A couple of questions, Lisa. How can we educate the Hispanic community about this? And as a Hispanic family, I'm interested in becoming a foster parent. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, on the I don't have it right here with me, but on you can go to the DHS website and click. There's all kinds of buttons to click for becoming a foster parent, and they can guide you through that. And Hispanic speaking foster parents are a huge need. So thank you for wanting to step up in that area. And I don't know, Paula, on is basics done for in Spanish as well?
We have the materials. We do not have a trained facilitator at this time, but if somebody's bilingual and interested in becoming trained and becoming a teacher, we would love to visit with you about that. So, yes. Any other questions tonight? So Lisa, thank you from the bottom of my heart for just sharing your personal story, for your knowledge, your experiences, your resources, your information. It was so rich and so full. And I have to tell you, I was a little emotional as you spoke about some of your experiences, just because it's just so personal. And I love your story and love seeing the success and all of this. So I will remind everybody that our conference continues tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. And we would love for you to continue to join us in the different sessions. We have so many rich sessions for you to choose from tomorrow as well. So thank you for being here tonight and for everything that is going on in your lives as well. So thank you for your time and being here tonight.
Paula, this is Teresa. I don't want to interrupt you, but there is another question in the chat.
Okay.
What resources do you have for young adult age post-adopt children? There are things for foster children aging out, but what supports are available for post-adoption young adults with trauma and mental illness that still cause challenges?
Yeah. So NAMI Basics is a great one too. That covers young adults as well. But as I mentioned, they're shoring up the post-adoption supports at DHS. And so I would call post adoptions and ask to speak with David Johnson, is the new person that's over that, the post adoptions, and that's trying to build therapeutic supports. I would ask for him and tell him that you heard that they were taking a more therapeutic approach to post adoptions, and could he point you in the right direction of getting that?
Oh, did I miss anything else? Thank you, Teresa.
If y'all get away from this and you think, oh, I should have asked, because that's the way I am all the time. Oh, I should have asked. Well, email Paula. She knows how to get in touch with me, and I'll respond to you guys.
Hey, thank you again, Lisa. Truly,
Sure.
thank you for all of your information.
Oh, let me just say one more thing. I'm sorry. If you are, this is the number one thing that I had as a foster care ombudsman that I just wanted to share is related to mental health. If you are a foster parent, you do not have to have a referral from DHS to get mental health services for your child. For some reason, that's a misconception amongst a lot of foster parents is I have to wait for my worker to do a referral before I can get an evaluation, before I can get help. That's false. If you are a foster parent and you are struggling with your kiddo, you start calling around. Call North Care, call Red Rock, call around and see who accepts Sooner Care and who has openings, and you take care of that yourself. You do not have to wait for your worker to make a referral for that. Take that into your own hands. And if you need help knowing who to call, that's where NAMI and the others can come in to help you.
Thank you,
So,
Lisa. See, it's all those little pieces of experience and knowledge that you have. Thank you for sharing it.
yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.